What's up, everyone? Something that has bothered me for a while is that within a certain weapon class, or a given weapon class, there tends to be one weapon that is better than all the others in both range and damage. Generally speaking, you would think that these would have sort of a balancing, these would be the main way of balancing one weapon versus another, whereas something may be shorter, it will have better damage. A version of this being done well is the Noble Slender Sword being the longest straight sword and the broadsword being one of the shorter ones, but it does quite a bit more damage. So there is actually a give and take in terms of what you want to use, and then all the swords that are in between, but generally people choose either the most damage or the longest range. But there are some weapon classes where this is just not the case, and other than using a weapon for a special Ash of War it has, there's generally very little reason to not run one option. So some smaller examples are going to be things such as Dagger. You have the dedicated, unequivocally best crit stick in the Misericord, and then you have about 4 other daggers that you may use for offhanding with a main hand weapon, such as, say, the most common being the Wakizashi, but then there being other builds where you could use, say, the Urge Steel Dagger, the Reduvia, stuff like that, where there's a couple extra options, the Sindacuia, or however you say it, the Cinderella. Straight swords generally have it actually done fairly well, like I said before, but then there's others, say like the thrusting swords, where the Clean Rot Knight sword is both the longest and the hardest hitting. So other than you like how a weapon looks, or you're using the Antspur for its Scarlet Rot, which, there's a lot of people that do that at, say, lower levels, there's very little reason to run something other than the Clean Rot. Or say katanas, Nagakiba is so much longer than everything else, and if I'm not mistaken, does more damage than all the other katanas. It's like, why would you not use this spinning slash stick? Like, why would you not use this power stance, just destroyer of worlds? Like, you wouldn't, it's just better than all the other choices in most regards. Then you also have a class like Ultra Greatswords, where the Greatsword and Zweihander are the 2 longest Ultra Greatswords, which means that you're either using the Zweihander because you're on a Dex build, or you're using it on, say, like, you want an Ultra Greatsword, but you don't really have the weight capacity to really use the Greatsword. But if you're running a build that does, there's no reason to not run the Greatsword, because it's the longest one, and its damage is obscenely high. It's higher than just about any other. It might be the highest. So with that being said, you can get what I'm saying, right? There tends to be one option that is in most situations much better than all the others, which is predictable. I mean, these games aren't known for having the greatest balance in a couple different regards, but it's generally harmless. Well, the thing is that you would hope that the give and take of a class, like, say, the Troll Ultra Greatsword, why in the hell would you use that over just using the Zweihander or the Greatsword? You would hope that eventually there would be a reason to, But the class of weapon that I think this is perhaps the most egregious on is Curved Swords, and you probably could predict that this is what I was going to talk about, considering that 90% of what I use is the Scimitar. But think about it for a moment. There are 2 Curved Swords that have the special R1 moveset. You have the Scimitar and you have the Shamshir. So they have the exact same stat requirements. They are almost the exact same weight, but the Shamshir does more damage, and it's also quite a bit longer. What the fuck is that balancing choice? There is almost literally no reason to run the Scimitar other than the fact that it looks 10 times cooler, which, yes, is the reason that I use it. But then you've also got the Bandit Sword versus the rest of the class. If you're going to be power stancing, there's really only 2 things you're going to do the majority of the time. That's either going to be using 2 Bandit Swords, regardless of the build almost, or you're going to be using a main hand Shamshir and an offhand Bandits. The reason this is so that you get that special R1 moveset that has a better chance, of getting a roll catch, right? But the thing is that the Bandit Sword is both the longest curve sword, and on the majority of builds, if you infuse it right, it will also have the highest damage. Now, based on what my friend told me, the Grossmesser does do more damage on a specific strength Frostbite build, which is nice, that is cool, but the damage difference is not large enough that it invalidates the length difference between the two, because the Bandits is still a little bit longer, you know? And the thing is that they really did the Curved Sword class no service when it came to like, oh, this one is shorter and does less damage, but it has a more useful R2, or something like that. Like, that generally just does not exist in this class of weapons. I think literally the only Curved Sword that has a unique R2 is the Mantis Claw, and that R2 is completely terrible. Like, the R2 across the entire class is terrible. But yeah, with that being said, I think that this is something that we're getting closer to being able to request this in balance patches. I mean, really, this game has been having 0 balance patches. It's more so been like fix the fucking game patches. And Elden Ring's doing quite good when it comes to that now. Like, we've gotten quite a lot of good stuff. But now that we're getting closer and closer to the DLC, it's almost a certainty that it's going to introduce weapons that blow everything in their respective weapon class out of the fucking water. So hopefully that doesn't happen as egregiously as I'm expecting it to, but yeah, I just think things should be better balanced within their own class. But with that being said, if you guys have any thoughts or ideas, leave them in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.